Welcome to Spread the Word, a podcast brought to you by Biz. Our mission is to interview and share perspectives on gender to our community. You're here with Audrey, Cindy, Ahana, Isha, Liz, Serena, and Aaron.
Today we'll be talking about feminism and choice feminism. Hi, I'm Ahana.
I'm Audrey.
And we're the Biz that will be interviewing Shambhavi and Joanna today.
Yay!
Yay, okay, so our first question is, our first few questions are pretty general, but the first one is, what does feminism mean to you and what experiences have led you guys to call yourselves feminists?
What feminism means to me is that every woman can express themselves as they feel fit in a way that makes them feel confident, makes them feel happy without being looked down upon or ostracized by society or not allowed to do the things that make them feel confident and happy. And what's your next question? What experiences led us to become feminists? Yeah. I actually realized this pretty recently, like very recently. I've always heard of feminism and I thought there were some great ideals, but I've always kind of read into the negatives as well and never really like fully understood. But it really just took a multitude of experiences kind of adding up to make me realize, and a song. It's a song, am I allowed to swear? Okay. There's a song called That Bitch by B. Miller. And I don't know, y'all have heard of it?
Yeah.
It made me realize that I was a feminist. And it's because I found that there is a certain way you're expected to act as, of course, we all realize this from one point or another when you're a woman. You can't be too angry. It's not feminine to swear and a bunch of other stuff. Like you can't be too upset about certain things. And it's come from me having situations where, you know, I was angry or I was upset. And then sometimes like the guys around me are like, they're like, huh? Or they see me in a more negative light. I'm like, and that made me realize like in that song, like That Bitch, she's like, it's basically, let me say what I want. I will be that bitch. And I was like, wait, period. And it made me become a feminist.
Well, yeah, for me too. I think it wasn't a sudden like sort of realization. Haven't been dedicated to feminism always, and as at least as I am now. And I think it always has been part of my life though, because like in college, for my mom at least, she was this like hotshot feminist, and I heard stories of this all the time. And like for example, her younger brother was expected to go to university, but like she was unquestionably like had higher academic success, but she just wasn't given the same option. And I'm like so proud of her for fighting for like the opportunity to do that. But like another thing is like in India specifically, like hair has cultural significance, specifically long hair for someone like a traditional Bharatanatyam dancer like herself. And she shaved her head and donated her hair in college, which I think is pretty dope.
Yes!
And yeah, so well, basically put, my mom is like a force of nature. So I grew up hearing this, and like I heard about stuff like infant femicide and like ridiculously high number of rape cases in India, honor killings and acid attacks. But this is like, it was all really distant to me, and I always like knew that was wrong, but I never had like the same experiences as my mom and couldn't really relate as much. But like, so it was like the shallow, like, I don't know, girl power kind of feminism that like made me wear like pink sparkly shirts with like girl power and girls are the best kind of like slogans written all across them in elementary school. And I don't regret that. It's like who I am and I don't take it back. But obviously that isn't feminism. And like it wasn't until I witnessed like domestic violence victimizing a male figure in my life, or I saw sexual abuse remain unaddressed by people I trusted, that I realized that there's like so much more like wrong with the way that we're living our lives. And it hit home when I realized that like even like the figure that I associated feminism with, my mom, had like problems like where she's still like kind of racist, and you can't be a feminist if your equality doesn't extend to like everyone all the time. So yeah, I think like the people that in my life have really helped me figure that out. And I realized that feminism to me is, if not gender equality, I mean, if not equality, it's gender equality. And it's just about equality in general.
Yeah, awesome. That sound like really awesome ways to realize that you guys are feminists.
Yes. Into our second question. So, Shambhavi, you mentioned that you wanted to talk about choice feminism. So, could you kind of explain to us what that is?
Yes, if you know me at all, I'm always talking about this. Unfortunately, even when it's not appropriate. But anyway, choice feminism is like the literal reason why feminism is for everybody. And the way that I think about it is like, I don't know, a common rallying cry of feminism is like, take down the patriarchy. And I like 100% agree with that. But um, I think people assume that when we're saying things like that, we mean that every family has to like follow this sort of equal lifestyle. I don't, and I think that's where the problem is, because obviously when the patriarchy is also like a father being like the dominant figure in a household, or also, but I think what we're referring to is like the societal like sexism and misogyny that we need to like get rid of. But I think people associate like feminism with like getting everyone to be like micromanaged. But the whole point of feminism is breaking people out of like the boxes that people built for like a binary set of genders. And when we realize that that isn't like the case anymore, it's like breaking out of those boxes and opening choices to everyone. So specifically for like a big hot topic issue like abortion, like I think a lot of people are realizing this now, but the difference between like pro-life and pro-choice is like pro-choice isn't saying that like I would never personally get an abortion. I just don't believe in that. But I'm pro-choice because I think that if other people would want to get abortions, they should have the ability to. And as a country that supports like we are literally built on the unalienable right to liberties, and they just shouldn't taken away from us. I don't think we're trying to say that any like lifestyle is wrong, and that's antithetical to the entire need of feminism because it's about freedom, and there isn't one way to use that freedom. So, I think people think that we're intruding on their lifestyle by being feminist, but the entire point of feminism is that you have a choice, and that everyone should have the choice to do whatever they want. So, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think choice feminism can be a super great thing, but at the same time, sometimes it cannot be that great of a thing where it can, like, very mainstream choice feminism can really just turn into like everyday common decisions being turned into, oh, I'm being feminist, right? And I read this post that's just like stuck with me. It's like, if everything is feminist, then nothing is feminist. And that kind of scared me because I was like, wait, that's a little bit true. And it's kind of to the point where it's like not every choice a woman can make should equal like a feminist empowerment statement, because people have different there's like wealth divides and race, and when that comes into play, you can't necessarily say that like you can't I 100% see where choice feminism comes from, but it really just comes down to if it is making a difference, like pushing the movement forwards, like perpetuating the ideals of feminism, or it's just like a decision being made in like day-to-day life. And that's truly such a large gray area. But it is something that I think really needs to be explored and defined more when it comes to feminism. If not, choice feminism can kind of turn into a little bit of a cop out for especially like celebrities who are just trying to be performative.
Yeah, I like see things all the time where it's like people think that just because like a woman does something like you have to support it or else you're like not a feminist. I was like wondering what you think of that like whole thing. But you can like respond after you respond to Joanna.
Well, actually, your question has a lot to do with what I'm trying to say. I totally think that like that's not the right way to go about feminism, especially since we're trying to like break down gender roles, I would say, and let people move away from that. And I think like I might have not made myself clear, but I think what I'm to think choice feminism as is like giving people the freedom to make choices that they want to, not applauding every choice that they make. Like sorry, for like the abortion thing, it's not, I mean, I wouldn't like, it's not supporting every single woman who gets an abortion or doesn't get an abortion. It's giving them the opportunity to do whatever they want to. It's really about opportunity, I think, and like for everything, every decision. But it isn't like you get applauded for choosing one way or the other or choosing at all. It's just that choice feminism is about like making sure that there are choices. And I think that I might have not been clear when I explained that. Sorry about that.
Oh, no. I really like your definition of choice feminism for sure. I just think mainstream's definition of it is turning into something that could not be the best thing for the movement. But like I really like that definition of choice feminism.
Glad we
Ahana,
agree.
Ahana, can you repeat your question one more time? I'm sorry.
So it's like sort of like Shambhavi said, I have like read stuff about choice feminism sort of turning into like this thing where every time a woman does something, you have to support it to be a feminist,
Right.
and if you don't, you're bad feminist, or like you're not a feminist or truly a feminist. As Shambhavi was saying, like it's sort of not, it's not really about like always supporting people or applauding people, but more of just like there being choices. I was just wondering like what you think of that whole like you always have to support people to be considered a feminist.
I'd say that you don't always have to support them in order to be a feminist. Of course, you should always give people a right to choose what they want to do with their lives and with their bodies. We are, just because we're all in this movement together, which is like an amazing movement, doesn't mean it takes away your individuality as a woman and your like own morals as a woman. And so I don't think you always need to support what another woman is doing in terms of her, like if she's like negatively harming like everyone around her or something of the sort with her decisions.
Yeah,
Sorry, just to touch on, because some of you's mentioned abortion 2 times now, and when it comes to abortion, my stance is so strong, and so I've been so tempted to mention something. And a big thing for me is before we even get into the conversation, forget pro-choice, forget pro-life, right? Make the world a place where women aren't afraid to have children if they are kicked out of their houses or they don't have enough money, right? Have more shelters, have more places where women can get supplies for their children. Like make society a place that is kind to young women who are pregnant or women in not great situations who find themselves being pregnant. Because then of course the abortion rate would go down. Like no woman, no one wants to not give their child a chance in the world. Like no one's like evil. You know what I mean? It's just that they know they can't give this child and themselves, a great future opportunities. So if you made society provide this for women, abortion rates would go down because they have a place to stay after their parents kick them out, and they have a way to get diapers for their child, and they have maybe even like daycares for their children while they go out and work and they like build themselves up and build their careers. So that's like a thing that I so strongly believe in, and I wonder why that's never anything talked about. Like you can't just say, oh, have your baby and then push them out into the world and then you don't give a shit. Like that child's out, they have 18 years. Like this is like an 18-year thing. This isn't just a 9-month have your baby thing, Like you have to care what happens to that child until they're an adult. Like the care just doesn't stop when the baby leaves the womb.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Continuing on the topic of feminism, Joanna you mentioned that you wanted to talk about some reasons that people invalidate feminism. What are like some of these reasons that you know of and that you could possibly explain?
Definitely that if you're a feminist, you're like, at least when it comes to teenagers, like high schoolers, right? I feel like we all intrinsically want to fit in so badly. So you just want to be this really cool, chill person. And feminism kind of has this aura of like you're strongly opinionated and you're like kind of almost angry. Like I feel like feminism has that stereotype about it, like the angry feminist and the feminist who doesn't get along well with other people. I feel like feminists are always showcased, at least in the past, as like kind of like the odd one out almost. Like they're too much for everyone else. And especially like in public schools, it's great at IMSA that we are so vocal about what we believe in. But like go back to your public school, how many girls in your English class are gonna look around, like will stand up and be like, I'm a feminist? Probably maybe one, maybe two. Um, and it's just because of that stereotype, which isn't true at all, by the way. I feel like deep down, most women have a feminist side to them, whether that's unlocked by like a familial situation or even by crappy friends, right? And that's just so wrong. And that feminism is man hating or bringing down men. That is also not true at all. Of course, there's some really radical people that, in the name of feminism, think that women should be better than men in society, which, of course, is not something I believe. That is not really what feminism is about, what like true feminism is. It's just to be equal to men. And this one podcast I listened to said it best. I feel like they see, like a lot of men see women being equal to men as oppression because they've been superior for so long. And that's maybe what they're feeling, because it's not necessarily like they are now being inferior in society. It's just they're no longer having the societal advantages. Like they're no longer favored by society. And maybe they, not maybe, but they see that they're not used to that. So to them, it's like almost this like detrimental feeling when really it's just equality. Okay.
Yeah, I would actually like totally agree with that. But the one thing that I would say is that I think that those women who think that like who are aiming like as their end goal to be like tip the scales and be better than men, they're not feminists by definition. They're
No.
misandrists. Because misandry is like the belief that women are better than men, and while feminism is like equality for all genders, um, that just isn't the same for misogyny, which is what we have now, or misandry. And they're both extremes. And I think this is like, I would even go as far to draw the parallel between like how people take down like Black Lives Matter by talking about like the riots. And like that's the most extreme part that not it doesn't conform to like the movement, but like the same way. I think misandrists are almost like the same thing for feminism, but they're not like technically even part of the movement because that isn't like by definition inherently like feminism cannot include misandry. And yeah, so like actually something that I heard from Mrs. Miklo, so shout out to her. And also Jen made a video about this that'll be coming to the res hall soon, so watch out for that. But like I don't know if you've heard this, I think we've all have, but when someone starts a sentence with I'm not a feminist but what's
Oh
really funny,
gosh.
yeah, it's really funny is that the statement is almost always something that a feminist would support. Like, I'm not a feminist, but I think girls should be able to have equal opportunities in careers. Well, that is feminist thought, and that I think there's
Yeah.
just like this fundamental misconception about what feminism is, because like the dictionary definition is something along the lines of social, political, and economic equality for the sexes by advocating for women's issues. And I think people get hung up on like the women's issues part because I think a lot of people are complacent with like where we are right now because there isn't, well, yeah. And what I would say to like those people is, the people that say that they aren't feminists, are, do you oppose the idea that every human being on the planet deserves equal rights and equal opportunities? And if you oppose it, why? And I might be gullible to think this, but I don't think a single person would be able to look me in the eye and say that they don't think every human being on the planet doesn't deserve equal rights, and that's what feminism is. So I just don't see, I think there's just like a labeling misconception of, like Joanna said, of what feminism is and how feminists act.
Okay, so for our final question, we wanted to ask, what do you think about like how are these like negative stereotypes kind of changing? Like, are they changing, or like will they change in the future? And like, what can people do to like kind of make it better, or like kind of I don't know, like kind of get rid of the negative stereotypes around being labeled a feminist?
So I think, like, well, obviously, like Joanna said, there are like just so many, like, feminists don't hate men. We're not angry. We're not Nazis. Feminazis are not a thing. We're not all unattractive and not feminine. Like, I think some of us really love being feminine, and we're not all lesbians. There's just so many things that, like, people associate with feminism that I think really stems from the second wave of feminism. But like, it's an evolving movement. Things change over time, and I think I've learned like the hard way that you can't really change everyone's opinions, but that necessarily isn't like the goal per se, because like, we aren't trying to force anything on anyone. Like I said before, that kind of defeats the purpose of feminism or choice feminism. And I think that over time cultures have like changed and continue to change, and like we should do our best to make the differences in the lives of individual people, to like reassure them that people of all genders, that feminism can support them. And like, again, this doesn't mean forcing them into a certain lifestyle. This means, like, I'm going to quote a friend of mine, Monica, who was quoting a different person, but she said that, like, there's no world, there's only 6 billion understandings of it. And by, like, changing one person's understanding of it, you change, like, what they think that they're capable of, and, like, how much people care about them, how powerful an agent of change that they can be. And therefore, you've changed the whole world. So if I think we should just like focus on making individual people understand that feminism can support them, and while at the same time working as a movement to make like systemic changes, to make sure sexism isn't like as prevalent as it is today.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, that's like a great perspective on like to that question. I also believe that making people realize maybe areas of their life where they're complacent and where they could thrive if they spoke out in situations where they were put down due to misogyny would also really help change misconceptions, because I don't know a single woman who hasn't experienced some level of misogyny. And not all of those women identify as feminists, because maybe to them they didn't view it as misogyny, right? They just viewed it as like, oh, he's being a prick, or oh, she's being annoying. But if you help people realize like, hey, no, like that's something that feminists stand against, like that is something this movement is trying to end, then maybe all those misconceptions of like the terribleness of feminism will go away when people realize like, no, there are in plenty of situations where standing up for this thing would make them a feminist, or is feminism. So I think that would really help the misconceptions of feminism, because everyone goes through it, really, like misogynistic situations.
Yeah, I feel like on the topic of misogyny, just like understanding that, and like also unlearning like a lot of like social conditioning that leads to like internalized misogyny that is basically normalized, is also a way that a lot of people can either like realize that they're feminist or become feminist. Because I think that, I mean, a lot has changed since we're little, but like the stuff that we grew up around is like, when you look back on it, some of it is like pretty, I think, like damaging to our perceptions of like what feminism is, or what it really means and stuff. So I think like unlearning those harmful things and learning like what really happened, and like in the case of misogyny, like learning that you actually experienced that and stuff like that is like important for people to see, like I guess the whole picture of feminism and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that, I think that like inherently people aren't gonna, like, we're all trying to be good people, and like you said, like sometimes it's just internalized. So if we just try to like be empathetic and recognize that like literally every single one of us is unique, and therefore we can't really label and keep our minds closed when we're having conversations that are important because of labels, then like we'll recognize that there is like value in personal power and responsibility, which I think is like almost the most central theme of feminism. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good note to end on. So yeah, thank you guys for your input and your opinions and thoughts on all of the stuff that we asked you today. We really enjoyed having you on the show, and we hope you had a good time today.
Thanks, Anna.
Yeah.
Yay, thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Spread the Word. Thank you so much for listening, and if you're looking for more Bayes content, make sure to follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Bayes_M7. Until then, spread the word.